One of the phrases I use the most when I talk to MSPs is, if I were to start an MSP again, this is what I would do. Well, I use that phrase a lot. So today is going to kick off the first of a number of videos in the guise of if I were to start again. So we're calling this special sub-series called MSP Rebooted, if I were to start again. Now, today we're gonna be talking about marketing and lead generation, because no matter what room I'm in, whether it's a peer group, whether it's a conference, whether it's a one-on-one conversation with an MSP, lead generation is almost always a topic we talk about. So that's what we're gonna start with, is lead generation and finding some of your first clients or finding more clients overall. Because ultimately, lead generation is one of those things that takes time, effort, and consistency. My name is Adam Hammond. Welcome to Ramblings of a Geek. I've been in the MSP space for a better part of a couple of decades, and I've talked to tons of MSPs. And most recently, I've talked to a couple of MSPs that said, hey, I've actually gotten a bunch of leads recently. And I said, well, what did you do? And they said, well, I did this, 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 and this, right? All the stuff I'm going to talk about in today's video. So that's what we're talking about today is marketing and lead generation if I were to start over again. Now, if I think about marketing and lead generation, there's like five and a half, maybe six things I want to talk about. So let's get into this topic, because if I were to start over again, this is what I would do. The first thing I would do is I would make myself a website. Now, would I hire it out? What would I do? Well, if it was me specifically, I would use WordPress, because I'm a WordPress kind of guy. I like WordPress a lot, but you could use Wix, you could use Squarespace, you could hire someone to do it. You could do a number of different things. But the thing is that this website has to have three basic components, right? The first thing is you need to be able to tell people who you are. The second thing is you need to be able to tell people who you help. And the third thing is you need to be able to tell them how you help them. Now, here's the key. Is it can't be some technical jargon filled website. It can't be a thing where it's like, here's all the different services and tools and things I use. Nobody cares about that. In fact, I would suggest that I wouldn't even put tools on there at all, other than we take care of your security, we take care of your backups, we take care of your productivity, and we do all those kinds of things. Like, those kinds of messages are the messages I would put on this website. And at this very basic side of the world of being a business card website, it's probably just 2 or 3 pages. It's not even anything super special just yet. Now, over time, I'm going to suggest that you do some more stuff to level it up and add some blogs and those kind of things, but we'll get to that here in a few minutes. Now, when it comes to your domain name, one of the things I really think that you should think about is making that domain name as short as you can make it. Now, of course, all of the real short domain names are out of there, but I've seen some domain names like 25, 30, 35 characters, way too many. I think you should be 10 characters or less, and I really want to be 6, 8, somewhere in there if you can make that work. Because the reality is that the harder your domain name is to spell, the much less likely anybody is to be able to hear it and remember it. Also, think about the next 10 or 15 years of your life. If you have to spell your domain name and it's 15 characters long and you're saying 8 or 9 letters to make sure that they get all the different cadences in there, that's going to be a lot of like mispronounced, misspelled emails gone into the ether because you had a complicated domain name. So think about that when you pick out your domain name. Do me a quick favor, drop a comment on this video about how you are out there trying to find new leads for your business. The second thing that I would do, and this really kind of goes hand in hand with the first one, is I would define some version of a target client profile. Now, if you hear me talk for more than 5 minutes about anything related to almost anything MSP, is you're going to hear me say the words target client profile. The reality is that whether you have 0 clients or 10,000 clients, you need to have a target client profile. Now, of course, the smaller you are, the less defined that is, and the larger you are, the more defined it is. But the idea here is that you want to think about your target client profile as an opportunity for you to define who you want to do business with and define who you're aiming your marketing at. Target client profile does not mean that you can't take on another type of client, right? If a prospect comes to you that says, hey, I want to do business with you, or you talk to them and you want to do business together, and they don't fit your target client profile, it's your business. You make the decision, but you don't necessarily have to, eject everyone that isn't a perfect fit. What you are doing is you are targeting your marketing, targeting your prospecting, and doing those things so that way you are able to really lean into the people that you want to do business with, right? But the reality is if you are marketing to everyone, you will not find anyone because it's so broad. You have to speak so broadly about all of the things that are going on that you're not going to attract people that you want to do business with. So that's why target client profile is so important. So define a target client profile. Now, if I were to start over again, I would probably aim at somewhere between 15 and 25 employee size companies. And I would probably lean into more on the white collar side of the world. I want to work between the hours of 8 and 5, not 5 to 8, 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. So I'm looking for CPAs, attorneys, architects, those kind of companies, that the ones that that value technology, that understand billable hours, and frankly, that if they don't have technology, they're going to be stuck. Those are the clients I want. Now, just because I would pick them doesn't mean you should pick them, right? So some people would not want to ever do business with lawyers. I personally kind of like lawyers, so I'm okay with that, right? So everyone's target client profile is a little bit different. Now, the reason I say 15 to 25 is that I don't run real small clients, although I'd probably take, especially in early days, I'd probably take a 5 or 10 person shop. But I don't really want anything more than about 30, 35 people, because the minute you get a little bit bigger, you get more complex. I don't really want to deal with complex stuff anymore, especially if I'm trying to grow a business, right? I don't want to deal with SANs. I don't want to deal with like hypervisor clustering. I don't want to deal with the real complicated stuff that requires big brain engineers to just do basic troubleshooting, because then I'm going to have to get pulled into everything, or I'm going to have to hire somebody who's super expensive to keep them on my staff to troubleshoot and deal with those things. So I want to keep things relatively tight. And the reality is that if I have 2 or 3 verticals and I say this is my size, and whatever that size happens to be, there are going to be plenty of opportunities for doing business in almost any metropolitan market. If you're out in the sticks or you're in a very small community, you might have to broaden this out or be a little bit more flexible with it, but you have a different opportunity for marketing is to really like lean into, hey, I'm one of the only people in town, right? You have a number of different options that you can really lean into depending on the different targets that you're aiming at. If you're finding some value out of this video, please do me a favor, hit that like button. It really does help. So the next thing is, and this one is probably one of, if not the most important of all of the things I want to talk about today, is joining networking groups and building your personal and professional network, because this is a relationship business. If you don't have a personal and professional network, you are going to have a much harder time finding new clients. So you need to be out there. And as technical people, we don't always want to be with other people. Trust me, I get it. But the reality is that you need to be out there on a pretty regular basis. So what I would do is I would join 2 or 3 networking groups. Frankly, I might join more depending on the cost and some of those other pieces, but I would join some networking groups. Now, the places I'd probably start, I'd probably start with Chambers of Commerce. I would probably start with BNI. I would look for other things. But the other thing is that when you think about your target client profile, is if you could figure out where they hang out, that's even better for you, because if you can go and be in their networking groups and be around multiple people in your target client, so much the better, right? So that's an important piece. So if I'm going to join a networking group, what am I looking for? I'm looking for my clients to be represented in one way, shape, or form. Now, literally in the room, cool. But almost more importantly to me is that I want my clients, my target clients, to be represented by the people doing business with those people in the room. Meaning that if I'm in a networking group, I want my other network folks to do business with the same types of clients that I want to do business with, so that way we have a joined target client as much as we possibly can, right? So that's your business real estate agents, that's cabling companies, that's internet providers, it's all of the ancillary things that would probably live in similar spaces or travel in similar spaces to your target clients. Those are the people that you want in those rooms as much as possible. So if you go to a networking group and that's not in there and you don't see that's ever going to be there, don't join that networking group, right? And if they try and give you a hard sell, hey, you gotta join this group because we're going to fill this seat pretty soon, but your target clients aren't in there, say thank you, but no thank you, moving on, right? The idea is that you need to have your people, your target clients, represented in those rooms. Now, I joined a group way back in the day, and it was fantastic for me for a variety of reasons. But the thing is that my target client was, if you have a computer and a checkbook and you have a computer problem, I'm your guy, right? That was kind of it. So my target client was everybody. And the reality is that if I were to do it over again, I would make sure to have a much more clearly defined target client and then make sure that those people were represented in the room I was in. Now, I learned a lot from that networking group and don't begrudge that at all, but if I were to do it over again, I'd want to really make sure that I was joining the right group. So then, if I'm thinking about prospecting and bringing on those first clients, the thing I'm doing next is I am meeting with as many people as I possibly can, right? Try to never eat alone, right? You always want to be having lunch with somebody, coffee with somebody, dinner with somebody, if it works with your family life, those kinds of things, right? The idea is you want to meet people. You want to build relationships. Again, this is a relationship business, not a transactional business. So make sure that you are building relationships as you go, because the more relationships you build and the more conversations you have with people, the more likely you are to get more and more referrals over time. Here's the thing, is that when you meet somebody, even if they're going to be potentially a good client for you, you don't want to just sit there and pitch at them, because if you just pitch to them, they're going to be turned off by that. So be curious about them. Ask them questions, learn about their business, learn about what they got going on, learn about the current provider, learn about all the different pieces that at some point you can then potentially say, hey, you know what? I might be able to help you with that, right? Let's talk about how I can help you, but not on the first time, right? This is a little bit like dating, right? You're not trying to get married on the first date. You're just trying to get to know them a little bit. Same thing with them, with you. So get to know them a little bit, understand how you might be able to help them, and then eventually make the pitch. Now this, it doesn't have to be 6, 8, 10, 12 months later, but the reality is if you build a relationship with this person in that company, the more likely they are to sign the deal when it comes time to actually shift providers anyway. So that's the important part. The other piece with anything networking group related is you have to be there, right? If you aren't going to your networking meetings, you're showing up every 3 or 4 or whatever, and you're not showing up to them on a consistent basis, good luck, because you're just not going to be the face of the person that does IT stuff for most of the people, right? If you're there frequently, meaning basically every week or every time they meet, that's going to be the best bet for you to generate the types of leads you're looking for in the long run. Because all of this lead stuff, everything lead generation related, is going to take you longer than you think it should. It takes time, it takes consistency. There is no easy button for lead generation for your MSP. There just isn't. Companies out there will say that you give them some money and they're going to turn around a bunch of leads. Now, they might turn around some leads, but are they going to be good fit leads? Who the hell knows, right? The idea is that there isn't a simple way of doing that, because if there was, nobody in this industry would be talking about lead generation. But the reality is that everyone talks about it, meaning no one's really cracked the code yet. And the ones that are doing pretty well are the ones that are doing it consistently, they're showing up over time, and they are providing value to the people that they talk to, right? They aren't out there just to extract a deal from somebody. They're out there providing value to the people they talk to. Not only do I do videos like this, but I do a newsletter about once a month as well. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that link on the screen and in the description of this video. I'd love it if you join. All right, early on in this video, I mentioned I was gonna come back to talk about the website, because I think after you join some networking groups and you kind of get that going a little bit, then it's time to start thinking a little bit about SEO. Now, I'm not saying you should go spend a ton of money on SEO. What I am saying, though, is that you should spend a few hours a week making a blog post, maybe making a video, something like what I'm doing here, and build content on your website and do it consistently over time. Now, here's the thing with SEO. It's not something that's going to take 2 weeks. It's not going to take 6. It's not even going to take 6 months. Most SEO changes that you're going to make are going to take somewhere north of 6 months, probably 12 to 18 months before it really starts making a difference for you. And so what you want to do early-ish on, or if you haven't been doing this already, start now and just make a solid blog post about a problem that you help solve a client with. Build use cases, like build blog posts around all the different things that you might be able to do to help your target clients succeed in their business, right? The idea is that the more content you have out there and the more ideas around the specific things that you can do to level up their business, the better off you're going to be, not only just in like the Google search engine SEO type of world, but also the more context you give it and the more clarity around the actual benefits that you can do with your potential clients, the more likely, even some of the AI tools, the large language models of the world might actually start pulling some of your data as they refresh over time as well. And the sixth thing I spent a couple minutes on is asking for referrals the right way. Now, this is one of those things that I see people do wrong all the time. They go to a client or they go to a prospect and they ask for a referral, something like this. If you know anybody that might be able to use my services, please send them my way, right? That is so generic that nobody's name is going to pop up in their head, or if one does, it's by pure dumb luck. Asking for that really generic referral is a lot like not having a target client profile. So what I suggest you do instead is to do one of 3 things, right? Thing 1, ask for a referral into a vertical that you want, right? So for example, if I'm starting today, I'm looking for CPAs, right? So if I'm working with a prospect or a client, I might say, hey, one of the things I'm trying to do is grow my business in the CPA world. Do you have a CPA that you know and like? Would you make an introduction to me, please? The thing here is that what's going to happen is that probably a single name or company name is going to come to their head. And if they like you well enough and they don't hate their CPA, they're more likely to give you a referral in that regard. Now, the reality is they might say, no, I don't know a CPA, or I don't really want to give you a referral. That's also fine. What you don't want to have happen is say, sure, if I think of somebody, I'll get that person to you, because that's just a nebulous maybe that's probably never going to come to fruition. So ask them for a specific introduction to a specific vertical. Second thing is, I see that you are connected to so-and-so on LinkedIn, or you've mentioned so-and-so in a different conversation that we had. Would you introduce me to that person? Because I might be able to help them in the long run as well, right? Same thing with the CPA thing. You're just trying to get somebody to have a single name to introduce you to somebody. The third thing is, and this one's a little bit different from some of my earlier videos, is if you are working within a target client profile and they have conferences, you want to go to those conferences, you want to go where those people hang out. So one of the things you might want to do is say, hey, I'm trying to grow my presence in your industry, whatever your industry is. Do you have a conference you go to that I could maybe sponsor or attend? Or do you guys have meetups? Find out where they hang out and congregate, because if you can find out where they hang out and congregate, that's where you want to be. You want to be in the space of your target clients, because the more that you're in the space of your target clients, the more likely you are to close some of that business. So that's a really important thing. So you ask referrals for one of those 3 different ways. If you do that and you do these 5 or 6 things, you're going to start closing deals, right? Like I mentioned before, I had a couple members who had been kind of banging their head against the wall and being frustrated about, I'm not getting any returns on the lead generation stuff that I'm doing. And I asked them what they were doing, and they're kind of listening to some of the things I had been kind of mentioning to them. I said, keep with it. It's going to pay off. Truly, it's going to pay off. And I kid you not, within about a week of each other, I had these 2 members come back to me and say, hey, guess what? I had 3 or 4 new leads. And I said, well, how did you get them? And they both said, well, one was from a networking group, one was from a blog post, and one was a referral. Like, it was that kind of stuff. Those things pop up, and that's a really important thing to do and lean into. So this marketing stuff takes time and effort. There's no easy button. You have to stick with it. If you want to hear me talk more about target client profile, because I think it's that important, I'll put that video up here, and I'll just put all of my sales and marketing videos up over here, because I think those are really important things as well. Thanks for coming on this ramble with me, and hope to see you on the next one.